Let's bring in our guest for this hour, find out what she thinks. Trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg, thanks for being with us. So, you know, we have time shifted this for our viewers. This is just a horrific but fascinating case out of New Mexico because we were in the Ferlazzo trial in Vermont. But today is her scheduled sentencing set for 4:30 today Eastern. What do you imagine that sentencing to look like? The defense didn't put on a case in this trial. Do you think that they are going to call witnesses? Perhaps maybe this defendant will speak before her sentencing? What do you imagine?
Well, first of all, I don't know why they didn't put on a case to start with. I mean, if they're going to follow the same pattern that they've been following, probably not. I mean, the bottom line is that just listening to what the viewers have heard, you have whiplash just from her story. So, I mean, it would be difficult to put on a case, and I don't know what it's going to add at this point if they start calling witnesses at the sentencing.
Yeah, and you know, this is someone that had prior bad acts, very similar to where she stole a vehicle, pled guilty to those charges after making up a story that once again her boyfriend did it and not her. You know, do you think that what we heard with the state police officer just on the stand talking about her odd behavior with the rocks, digging a hole, talking to news reporters and then ducking down and hiding behind cars, maybe there's a mental component here that they can use as a mitigating factor?
I agree with you, Matt. I think that from the testimony that we did hear, that it does appear that she has some mental issue that's going on. I mean, this story is just so strange. I mean, what was the motive? What was she doing? She had done this, like you said, previously. I mean, it's almost like she thought she was in that video game. What is it, Grand Theft Auto? And she's taking cars and running around town from New Mexico to Vegas. I mean, it's a very odd set of facts and circumstances. But I do think that they should bring up to try to mitigate the sentence, that the mental health, maybe her background, something of that nature.
Yeah, and you know, I also expect to hear from all of the witnesses and the victims and their families. We had an off-duty firefighter that was killed, retired, and we had a police officer that was responding to try to save Jaramillo's life during all of this craziness. We had people injured. She's facing a lot of charges, but I would imagine that they're going to be making emotional and powerful statements to this woman. Hopefully she turns her life around.
I mean, yes, I agree with you. There's going to be the victims. We have children here. We have very well-respected victims that were, like you said, trying to save her life, which is just horrible. I believe, you know, sentencings and impact statements are very emotional, and they're meant to be, but they're also meant to give the victims the opportunity to be heard and try to express the impact that this devastation has on their life.
What's really going through your mind with this person? She's showing no remorse, they point that out. Is it a mental issue? Is it, you know, I mean, a cry for help, a cry for attention? She does these things, and she keeps lying.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think it is a cry for help as well as a cry for attention, and there's mental health issues here. But I think the reason that the police officer, although he didn't really get into it on the stand, let her go on ad nauseum on the story was to get those inconsistencies, because as she's just talking, as they were kind of pointing out, there are these various inconsistencies that are coming out in the story.
Do you think that the prior bad act, which is very similar, the year prior in Cibola County, this happening in Santa Fe County, also involving a stolen vehicle, running from police, high-speed chase, and making up a story that she was held at knife point, do you think that that's going to get brought up today at 4:30?
I do think that's going to get brought up. And I also think that's an indicator that it probably touches upon the seeking out, like you mentioned, attention. But that is going to come out. Any other priors that she may have is going to come out. And they're going to get into that because there's a whole sheet that goes into sentencing, and those are considerations that are taken into consideration.
Is there anything that you would introduce to the judge that hasn't already as a prosecutor? Take pull back the curtain. Do you think that there's a lot of evidence that we may not know yet?
I think that they've laid it out. Obviously, there are things that can't come in at trial, but I mean, this is pretty straightforward. We have two police officers that were trying to save the defendant's life that are now dead. And the fact that the jury came back and convicted her of the first degree kind of speaks for itself.
All right, Alexis Rosenberg, thanks for your time today. Always a pleasure when you're on the program.